Hey, welcome back to Geek-Dom. I'm your host, Don. Today, I'm going to be going into my second Ansible video for Raspberry. If you saw the first video, which I'll put a link in the description for those of you who haven't, it was basically just going through the install, initial configuration, and just a couple, basic playbooks. In this video, I'm going to go over into a little bit more complex or advanced playbooks. And when I say advanced, it's advanced to me because I'm, teaching myself this stuff. So I've copied over from my production environment to my dev environment some playbooks here, just to show you a few different ways of utilizing them. Because you can, and I'll pull one up here in a second, you can have one playbook that just does one thing. You can have one playbook that calls other playbooks, such as this SSH Master here. So this is calling individual playbooks from the subfolder SSH of the current directory, and I do this as for like an initial configuration. Which, if we drill down here, you can see the individual playbooks. Now I set this one up this way because this is kind of a, if I run the master, it's kind of like for a new install. But I've got multiple Raspberry Pis in production and development, and sometimes I'll take them out, have to rebuild them, change IP addresses, whatever, and I don't need to run everything over again. So let's say I had to rebuild a new Raspberry Pi and the authorization key changed for it. That SSH had to regenerate a new one. I can just go in here and update it and then blast that out to all the Raspberry Pis without having to run the whole configuration from scratch. Or host, if IP address changes or I add a Raspberry Pi, I can just come in here and update it and just fire that one off. Excuse me. Now, this is an example of one that just does several steps. So this is one I don't use that often. It's, again, like an initial setup, but these aren't individual steps that I gotta go back and redo if I rebuild. So you can see you do your task, put your commands in there, go down to the next task. So one of the ones I'm going to show you to start off with is, I like my terminals to have a little flair, a little pizzazz. So I have a custom built login screen, because as you can see here, the standard boring one, I don't like it. So I've got a script here that will create and copy over, copy over my my bash setup. So here, let me log in. Again, do this so I don't have to keep typing in the passphrase each time. So we're going to do Ansible playbook, Ansible-playbook, E for extra variable, and define the target, which in this case is going to be dev2. Again, another E for extra variable. This is going to be the Ansible become password. And the playbook I'm going to run is logo_wired master. Now this calls two different scripts, which I'll show here in a minute. Well, okay. Obviously I haven't set everything up in my dev or destroyed it and reset it up. So right now it's going through, it's copying over the .bash profile file, and it's rebooting. And we come back, the script will not finish running until that Raspberry Pi is back up. I may need to fast forward through this part. It's always hard when you're doing this to sit here and wait. Even though it's a matter of seconds, it's not like back in the day of a physical computer where it takes a few minutes. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to restart the session. And now there's my custom welcome screen. I do plan on doing a video on how I did this. Begged, borrowed, and stealed stuff off the internet and just customized it to what I wanted. So this way, when I log in, I get some nice information. And it's not just that boring drab screen. So the next thing is configurations. Just as you saw on when I went to run the script, it asked me if I wanted to allow, and that's because I didn't have known host set up. Just like this. So now I canceled this out, so I didn't add this to the dev2's known host. So gonna go in, and like I was talking about, I can go in and run the SSH Master, which applies all the configurations. Or I could, if this was just making a small change, I could go in and just run that one file. So in this case, we're just going to let the whole shebang run. So right now it's gathering, and now you're going to see it go through each playbook it calls. Now it does do it sequentially, it doesn't fire them all off at the same time. So it waits for the script it's running to finish, and then it goes on. So here you can see it ran through 8 items. And now if we come back over here and check, known host. So now I should be able to just SSH, pardon me, got the hiccups, SSH over, and look at that, it didn't ask me if I wanted to continue or not. And that's because it's pulling it from that known host file that I just pushed out. So again, if you got multiple Raspberry Pis, this is handy so you don't have to go through every single time. Because if you're like me, I've got a dozen or so Raspberry Pis, and every time I SSH from one to another, just imagine a dozen times a dozen from every single one. So now here's a little bit more advanced one. This is to change a user password on the Raspberry Pis. In this case, it's user pi. Now everything will stay the same except for this highlighted bit here, and that's a hash. Ansible will not allow you to push clear text passwords into user accounts. So this one requires a little bit of a setup. You have to install a program called passlib, and it's just a hashing tool. So here's the command to install it. And then there's going to be this really ugly command you have to run to initiate it. Now I'll put these commands in the description. So now that's installed. Copy and paste here. This is something I keep in Notepad, just because it's not something I can remember off the top of my head. Yeah, come on, where is it? There we go. So what this is going to do is it's going to pull that passlib hash file, and it's going to ask you to input a password. Now you only get one shot at putting the password in, so please make sure that you type it correctly. So type in your new password, and it's going to generate that new hash. So now you're going to copy this whole thing. If I can get it highlighted here. You're going to go into that password playbook, and you're going to change everything from this point here. Alt tab to delete everything below the cursor. Put the new hash in. Gonna save it. Now, when it does change the password, and I'll show you here in a minute. If I can get. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . or I'll just type it out. I'm very lazy. I like to use the previous commands, but sometimes there's just too many to go back to. So we're normal. We're going to define the target. We're going to define the Ansible become password. And then we're going to put the playbook in. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and I probably should add this to my playbook, is it changes it, but you have to reboot the system for it to take effect. So just to show you, running it again, I didn't change the password, and it ran again. So, the reason so far I don't have the reboot in there is just because I like to check the systems. But that's just a few of the more advanced to me, playbooks that I use on a regular basis. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Any question, comments, please post below. Any playbook ideas that you have, let me know, and we'll see what we can work out. If you like this, learned something, or just want to have pity on me, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and I will catch you guys next time. Thanks.